Alright, how's it going? I am the Crown Clown, and today we are doing What If Deku Was the Son of Zeus, Part 10. And before we get started, if you guys enjoy this series, if you guys want to see more of this series, I'd appreciate it. If you guys, give me a thumbs up on the video, comment down below, subscribe if you're new, click that red subscribe button. If it's, not red, don't click it. It means you're already subscribed. Click the notification bell, get all notifications whenever I upload a video, and click that link down in the description to join the Discord. We have a good time, and without further ado, let's jump into a quick recap on where we last left off. So where we last left off, Nyx was finally defeated, but it came at a steep price. Instead of just having potentially one, major enemy to deal with, they now have to deal with Hera. They have to deal with Shigaraki having the power of Hades, Nine having the power of, how should I say this, Thanatos, and, even though Chimera was killed, Slice was killed, and Mummy was absolutely obliterated, they can be brought back, seeing as how Nine and Shigaraki have the two powers of the gods of the underworld. That is insane, because now it means no matter how many of their, allies get killed, because normally villains wouldn't go to extents to where they be killed or commit suicide, but now they can be brought back. That makes the villains very dangerous now, because Shigaraki and Nine take away the fear of death. And when you have villains who would, use their powers very extremely, and they have no fear of death anymore, they're going to push their bodies to the absolute limits and beyond that. Because to them, there's no consequence. They'll just be brought right back and keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So, yeah, and Shigaraki, he knows that he can rip out souls. So, All Might, he's dead. The symbol of peace is gone. And that was broadcast all over the world. It was international news. And, that's going to have a big backlash and a huge fallout. Because not only did All Might die on, camera for the entire world to see, it also showed that villains are now strong enough to overpower All Might and go to a draw with some of the strongest hero students that surpassed All Might. So there's a lot of uncertainty now in the society and in the world in general. And, since none of them had their licenses, there's no way that they're not going to have any consequences come of this. And UA is going to be put in a very big spot right now. So, yes, there's major consequences coming, but for right now, we're picking up at All Might's funeral. So, Deku, he's dressed in a suit, Bakugo's in a suit, Toga's in her dress, Poseidon's in a suit, and they're getting ready to kind of walk over there. Asui, she's in a suit as well, and so is Ida, because Asui is All Might's successor now. And they're going to the funeral, and they're sitting there, and, there's a few people that are coming up and saying stuff, and, amongst the people are David Shield and his daughter Melissa Shield. So they're talking about All Might, and, they saw the news, and they see Deku's back there with Bakugo, Asui, and Poseidon, and Ida, and they're not going to say nothing right now. But the funeral proceedings go on. Deku puts a white rose on All Might's casket. It's like international news, and the whole country of Japan, no, the whole world is feeling sorrow from All Might's death. They're just, brought to absolute lows right now. So the whole world is mourning All Might, and amongst them, everyone's clearing out, and David Shield, he walks up to Poseidon and says, "I would like to talk with you and your group here, please." And Poseidon says, "Of course." So they head back to Poseidon's house, and you know, once they're there, Poseidon, he puts on some tea, and everybody is, on edge. Deku takes off his suit jacket and throws it on his bed. He's sitting in his bed right now, just like thinking that Toga, she gets on the bed, wraps her arms around Deku, and says, "Hey, don't worry about it. Everything will be alright." And Deku's like, "Are you sure about that?" And Toga's like, "Yeah, besides, there's some good news that'll be coming soon enough, I'm sure, you know?" And Deku's like, "What could possibly be good news?" And Toga's like, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out here in a few days or maybe a month or so. Who knows? And Deku's like, "Is there something you want to tell me?" And Toga says, "No, not at all. Just don't worry about it." And, Deku's like, "All right." So Deku, he goes to take a shower, and, Asui, she could overhear them because Asui was, kind of trying to stay out of the living room because Poseidon and, David are talking in there. And David's literally just running Poseidon down to the ground. And Poseidon, he's not saying anything. He's just taking it. David's saying, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you bring those students into that fight? And why wouldn't you back All Might up sooner? If you had been there sooner, then, I know you were stronger than All Might. You could have saved his life." Poseidon says, "Look, All Might had no business in that fight. That fight was well beyond his scope. I tried to tell people to stay out of that. But you're right. If I had gotten there sooner, maybe I could have saved his life. Or maybe I would have died with him. Would that have made you happier if I died with him?" And, they're just like, it's just, why did he have to die? Why was he the only one to die? And, All Might says, "Look, that woman they brought back to life, she clearly had some relation to All Might, and that affected him mentally. And when a warrior's mind is messed with, when they have conflicting thoughts, it weakens them. It makes them off edge. It just dulls their senses. They can't react as fast. And that often leads to death. Mental warfare is extremely important. All Might just couldn't handle the mental war. So it led to his death. Shit happens. And, and they keep going back and forth. Asui goes in there with Toga, and she's like, "Hey, what's wrong? Yeah, you seemed like you wanted to tell Izuku something, what's wrong?" And Toga's just like, "Oh, it's just that I've been feeling a little bit sick here lately. I'm not sure if it's my powers or something else." And also he's just like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, me and him have been sexually active with each other, right?" And also he's like, "Yeah." And she says, "Well, he's never used a condom with me. Kind of our deal." And she's like, Asui's starting to get it. She's like, "Are you pregnant?" And Toga's like, "I'm not sure if I am or not. That's why I said in a few days or maybe a month." And Asui's just like, "Come on, let's go down to the convenience store real quick." So Poseidon asks, "Where do you two think you're going?" And Asui says that she needs to go and check something real quick with Toga. They'll be back shortly. And Melissa sees the only two girls in the house just left. And she's just like, "Oh no." And Poseidon, he's like, "Look, I understand that. If you think I'm not smart enough to handle it, then why don't I just give you or your daughter the fucking wisdom of Athena then? See if you could come up with a better plan or strategy." And he's just like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "I could easily hand over to you the knowledge of the world's smartest god. if you think you're so much smarter than me, you can take her wisdom and add it to your own. See if you could come up with a better idea. And, you know, they're just like, seriously? And Melissa, before David can even, try and refute that, she's like, okay, I'll take it. And Poseidon says, all right, hold out your hand. And Melissa does that, and Poseidon just grabs her arm and literally just transfer Athena's powers right on over to Melissa, making her the new goddess of wisdom. And she immediately feels the increase in her knowledge capacity. She sees all of Athena's past history, everything. She knows everything Athena knew. And she's just like, oh my gosh. And, Poseidon's just like, there, you are now the goddess of knowledge. And, she's just like, wait, I'm a goddess? He's like, well, officially, no. Technically, yes. And she's like, well, what's the difference between technically and officially? He's just like, it's just like my, nephew in there. He's not officially a god, but technically he has more than enough powers to be a god. But before new gods can be selected, all of the old gods have to die off. And since I'm the last of the old gods, if I die, the new gods will be selected by chaos. Therefore, new gods shall be appointed, and he has enough power to become the new king of the gods. And, they're just like, seriously? And Poseidon's like, yes, seriously. So they're just like, wow, how long do you gods live for? Poseidon's like, I've lived for over, an eon here. So if I was going to die, it would have happened by now. And they're just like, oh, okay. David, he's just like, hold on. All this talk about gods, it doesn't make any sense. There's no scientific proof that there's any, credibility to your source. And, Melissa's just like, well, sometimes science can't be the answer to everything. All you really just need to do to be able to believe that something's true is just accept it and believe in it. Science doesn't show us everything. And David, hearing that from his own daughter, who is renowned as, a master scientist and engineer in her school, is just like, wow. And keep in mind, Athena was a master of war tactics as well. So Melissa's just now becoming like the god of wisdom. And now she's going to have to be their tactician as well. Poseidon is too valuable of a warrior to be a tactician, so he was planning on passing the power down anyway, so that way he wouldn't have to be the tactical role and the warrior role, because for him, that's too much of a burden. Like Poseidon, he was shown to be a tactical fighter in mythology, but he's having to take up too many roles as it is. He's the current king of the gods. He's a role model, a technical father and uncle at the same time. He's just got too much going on. And there's just no way he can be their, base tactician. There's just no way he can do it anymore. So that's why he handed the power off to Melissa. Therefore, she's now an integral member in this story. So David, he's just like, look, we aren't even planning here to stay here that long. And, Poseidon's like, well, you should have said that before I passed down the power, because we're going to need your daughter now, because these villains aren't going to stop. And there's no way that we should be able to have her off somewhere. We need her here with us. We need the wisdom of Athena with us at all times to be able to call out strategies, plans, and marks and determine which matchups would be the best suited for us. So David's like, look, I understand that, but my daughter deserves a normal life, not a life that you're trying to force on her. And Poseidon's like, look, you said you could do a better job than me. Now's your chance to prove it, or are you just going to try and run off without doing anything? You just going to let your friend die and not do anything to avenge it? Because if that's how good of a friend you were to him, I'd hate to see how his enemies treated him. Oh wait, I already did. But at least they killed him and looked him in the eye. All you're doing is spitting on his grave and walking off. And David is pissed at that. He's like, how dare you? You have no right. You have no right whatsoever to be saying that. And, he's just like, Poseidon's like, I don't give a fuck. That's exactly what you're doing, and I'm calling out your hypocrisy. So, get your head out of your ass and move down here already, because your daughter's not going back until after all these villains are fucking dealt with and the powers of the gods are restored back to chaos. And Bacchus is like, wait, does that mean I have to give up my powers? Poseidon says, no. Your powers were given to you by chaos. You are marked to become a new god once I die. You will become a god, a full-fledged god. Your mortality shall be ripped from you, and you shall be given the lifespan of an actual god. That goes for you, Deku, Toga, and now Melissa. Once I die, the four of you shall become the new gods of this world. And they're just like, wow. And Deku, he's coming out of the shower hearing that, and he's just like, you're not planning on dying, are you? And Poseidon's like, I don't know how this future could hold. I am the last of the gods. If something goes wrong, I'm not going to, sit there and just let you guys die. I would sacrifice my life for any one of you in this room. And Ida's just like, look, I understand that I'm got in the way, that I was acting foolish and stupid, and you guys had to save me. And Poseidon's like, I can appreciate you, admitting your own downfalls. You were too slow. You need to be faster. And before I go any further, are you committed to this? Are you committed to being in this role? Do you want to help us? Do you want to get payback? Do you want to put these villains down and put them down hard? Do you wish to take this world into an era of peace? Can you bear the responsibility of all these people's lives on your hands? Their blood that will be shed, that's all going to be on you. Can you handle that burden? Are you ready? And Ida just says, yes, I am ready. I can handle the burden. I won't be running away anymore. And Poseidon says, good. And he requests upon chaos. Chaos comes down. And Chaos is pretty much already sure what Poseidon's about to ask of him. And he looks at Poseidon and he tells him, look, this is going to be one of the last times I do this. You get it all out now. Any powers you want, you get it out now. Because after this, I'm done. I'm going back. And once you die, Poseidon, once you die, I will come down, grant them their godhoods, but that's it. That is as far as it goes. If you're lying there about to die, I will not save you. I will let you die the most horrendous death possible if that is what is in store for you. So, I ask you right here and now, whose powers do you want me to give you so you can distribute? Tell me now, Poseidon. And Poseidon says, very well. Give me the powers of Hermes, Apollo, Artemis. And I think that should be all. That's all I'll have. Because I'm pretty sure the other ones are off the table. And that includes Zeus, right? And he says, Zeus, I cannot give you. Zeus has been brought back. His power is already off of my market. And Deku hears that. He rushes straight towards Chaos, and he's like, what do you mean my dad has been brought back? And he's like, your father has been brought back. There is nothing more I can say on that. I bid you farewell. As soon as he says that, he gives the powers to Poseidon, and he goes on off, not to be seen again. And so he walks over to Ida, and he's like, all right, hold out your arm. Ida does, and he passes Hermes' powers on to Ida, making him the god of speed. And Ida is just overwhelmed with how much faster he can go now. The amount of power he has at his, beck and call, it's overwhelming to him. And, he's just like, okay, we need to find two people. One to take Artemis's powers and one to take Apollo's. And they're just like, okay, sure. So while that's going on, Toga and Asui are down at the convenience store, and they decide to just use the pregnancy test then and there. And they're waiting. They're in the restroom together. They're just waiting. And, 5 minutes pass. And the test comes back positive. And Toga just starts crying because she doesn't know how she's going to, break this to Deku. She doesn't know exactly how to tell him all of this or anything like that. She's not sure what to do or say about any of that. So she's kind of just breaking down and having an anxiety attack at this current moment. And Toga's just like, hey, it'll be okay. And Asui's just like, yeah, it'll be fine. I'll make sure of it. And she's like, how are you going to make sure of it? She's like, trust me, Deku has respect for me as a friend, so I'm pretty sure I could smooth things over. And Toga's just like, are you sure? And Asui's just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. So they head on back to the house, and, Toga's still, holding on to the test, and, she's just freaking out, and, she's actually kind of shaking, and Asui, she's just like, it'll be okay, it'll be all right, trying to comfort her and console her. And they get back to the house, and they open it, and they, just hear the screaming contest going on, and they see Deku's already pissed off for some odd reason. David's shield is still yelling at Poseidon. Poseidon's yelling back. Melissa's trying to calm everybody down. And, Deku is seemingly just shouting up at the air. Toga knows who he's yelling at. Asui doesn't have the faintest clue whatsoever. Ida, is talking to Bakugo, trying to get some pointers on how to control his powers. It's chaos at the moment. And then, Asui just yells, hey, can we all shut the fuck up and calm down? We have some news to tell. And Toga's like, what? You're going to be telling them now? And she's like, yes, it'll at least lighten up the mood a bit here. And Toga says, or it could completely put it into an even darker state of, decay. And Asui's just like, it's worth the trade-off here right now. And Deku's like, well, one of you just tell me what is it you have to say. We're kind of going through some important stuff here. And Asui, snaps right at him. This is important, Izuku. This directly involves you. And she looks at Poseidon and says, this is going to effectively, concern you as well. And Poseidon's just like, the fuck? And Bakugo's already put it together. Ida has put it together. Melissa has put it together. Even David's put it together. Poseidon and Deku are still just clueless as hell. So, Asui says, Toga, why don't you just show them since I know you're not capable of telling them. So Toga, she takes out that little pregnancy test and, she shows it to everybody. And Melissa sees the plus. Her face turns bright fucking red. David sees it and he just it was like, the hell? Bakugo sees it and he's just laughing his ass off. Ida sees it and he's kind of just in a state of shock. Poseidon sees it and is like, the fuck is that thing? And, Deku's just like, don't tell me. Don't tell me. And also he's like, it's a pregnancy test, Poseidon. And when it has those, little double eyes, that means, it means it's positive. And Poseidon's just like, she's pregnant. And Deku, he's just like, oh no. Oh no. And Toga's like, what do you mean, oh no? And Deku's like, look, it's not that I didn't want to have a kid, it's just now is not the right time at all. Seriously, we're about to be going into a war here. Now is not the right time whatsoever. And, Toga's just heartbroken by that. And Bakugo literally just spins over there towards Deku, and Ida, rushes over there. Bakugo gives him a fiery punch to the face, and Ida gives him the fastest Hermes Respiro burst kick to the stomach that he's ever fucking had. Even Poseidon goes over there and slams his metal fist into Deku's face. And they're just like, you heartless motherfucker. And Poseidon's like, I raised you better than this. What would your mother think if you were saying that? And, Deku's just like, leave my mother out of this. And Poseidon's like, no, I will not leave your mother out of this. She was going to be my wife. And Deku's like, what? That's the first I heard about that. Poseidon's like, yes, I was going to be your father, nephew. And Deku's just mind blown right after another, just what the fuck? His head's literally just steaming right now. He doesn't know what the fuck to say or anything. And Toga, she goes over there and Deku's like, if you're gonna hit me, please just not the face anymore. But Toga just hugs him and she's just like, I know you're scared and everything, but this is actually happening. We can't run from this no more than what we could run from that war that's coming. And Deku's just like, I know, but still, it's just... And she's like, I know, but don't worry about it. It'll be alright. So, that's where I'm, gonna switch places now. So, we've covered the hero side. Now let's go over to the villains and see what they're all up against. So right now with the villains, they get back to the bar. And, Stain is out on the run. He's not with them whatsoever. But Shigaraki is there with Nine and with All for One as well. Nana Shimura, she's dead again, but not for long. Shigaraki's just like, hey, master, you think it would be alright if I revived her and All Might? And, he's just turning their symbol of peace against them, making him the symbol of tyranny. Now that would be amazing. And, great irony as well, just to add salt to the wound. And so Shigaraki's focusing, and he's able to bring back All Might since he did die pretty recently. And he also brings back Nana Shimura again. And All Might is, corrupted when he's brought back. His mind isn't there. Basically, they chose to, bring All Might back with his powers, including the fully, younger All Might body, where he didn't have the injury. He had 100% use of his full power. And Nana Shimura with the same deal. Like, she has 100% of her power at her absolute prime body. And, they're just like, yes, now this will be amazing irony right here. And Nine's like, while you're at it, can you fully revive my subordinates? We'll need their power. And Shigaraki's like, we haven't determined that we're working together yet. And All For One says, oh, please, it would be absolutely insane not to work with each other. After all, we're all trying to destroy the same thing here. And, Shigaraki's like, oh. And All For One says, yes, we're all trying to destroy the world. And, this is when they see the roof just collapses in a certain area. And there is Hera. Hera comes in, but she has guessed. With her on her arm is Zeus. Mindless slave, just empty blank Zeus. And alongside Zeus are his two strongest sons, Perseus and Heracles, right there with them. But they have their full personalities in suit, considering Heracles willingly chose to side with Hera. But Perseus doesn't know Zeus isn't his actual self. Therefore, he's choosing to side with his father. And Heracles is seeing Perseus for the first time ever because Heracles is an actual descendant of Perseus. So it's like Perseus is meeting his great grandson. And Heracles is meeting his great grandfather. So it's a little bit of a family reunion right there. But that's not all. She tells them in a, other area, she has an even stronger person, the strongest titan to ever reign on the earth, Kronos. And they're just like, holy shit. And Shigaraki, he's arrogant right now because he's high off having Hades' powers. He's like, please, I could kill you all. And Hera tells Zeus to put him in his place. Zeus just blitzes Shigaraki and slams his fist straight through Shigaraki's chest, ripping his heart out. And Nine is like, hold on a minute here. And as Shigaraki lies there dying, Hera just takes Hades' power right back. So Shigaraki is no longer in the story whatsoever, but Hera isn't really fond on having, Shigaraki quite just be this living corpse. And, she asks All For One, I know you have the ability to steal quirks from this time. Could you steal his right now before he completely dies? And he's like, of course. So he takes Shigaraki's decay quirk from his body, which is just a mindless husk. And, Hera's saying that, could you give it to someone who she wishes? And he's like, of course, but what do I stand to gain out of this? You just killed my future successor. And she's like, oh, I'm pretty sure that you will find a better one in the mortal that I have found. He's actually quite discreet and very good with his hands. Not only that, but his mind is a lot more technical, focused, and more sinister, you could say. He has a certain goal in mind, and he's wishing to actually exact it in a more well behaved manner, you could say. And, Herod's, tells him, all right, come on in. And, right as she says that, the door opens and in comes a man in a green, dress, button up shirt, a black tie, gloves, a purple jacket, and a plague doctor mask. And, she says, introduce yourself. And he says, you can call me Overhaul. And she's like, now, the deal we made is you do have it, correct, Overhaul? And he's like, more or less, yeah, the quirk destroying bullets. I have prototypes of them ready to go at a moment's notice. I'm going to need a bit more time to make it, longer lasting. And she's like, time is something that you will have plenty of. Right now is the setup to our master plan, but there's a couple of gifts I wish to impart upon you. This way you need not fear from killing that girl, and you can move at a bit of a faster pace. So she grants Overhaul Hades' powers, and she tells, All for One to give him the decay quirk, along with the regeneration quirk that he has stored up. And, All for One's just like, I agreed on the decay quirk, but not the regeneration. And, this is when Heracles steps in. He grabs, All for One by the throat, and he says, do you have a death wish? Defying the queen of the gods. You should know your place, mortal. You are not above us killing. And, Hera tells Heracles, let him go. And Heracles says, do I have to be gentle, mother? And she says, I am not your mother. But no, you do not need to be gentle. And Heracles says, forgive my rudeness, as he slams All for One down and creating a bit of a crater in the bar. So All for One, he's learned his lesson. He's going to start complying. So he goes over there and hands over the decay quirk and the regeneration quirk to Overhaul. And Overhaul's pretty happy about this, and he's like, oh, you wanted your subordinates revived, right? And he's like, yes, is that within your power? He says, yeah, no sweat. You want them fully revived with their own personalities and minds? And Nine's like, yes, that would be very helpful to me. So Overhaul just kind of snaps his fingers, and it happens. Because he's naturally has a gift for bringing stuff back to its original form, seeing as how his quirk is, and seeing as how Hades' powers kind of work similar to that. He's able to grasp it really quickly. It's just the pyrokinesis and shadow manipulation powers that he needs to really focus on. And Hera does have Nyx's powers in this, so Hera is not one to be messed with, not in the slightest. So there is still an overwhelming threat, and the villains have a huge advantage at this current time. However, all hope isn't lost. They're putting their plan into action, and Overhaul is going extremely hard on Aerie now. Like, he's not letting her take a break. He's literally just killing her, bringing her back, just over and over and over again. It's breaking her mind, and what's more important is breaking her soul. And, Inko, she's still captive in all this. Like, Hera still has her. And she says, well, today's your lucky day. And Inko's like, oh, how so? She says, I'm going to let you go back to your family. And Inko's just like, what? And she's like, yes, no strings attached. I will leave you alone. You can go right back to your family and enjoy what little time your family has left before I inevitably kill them. But oh, one little thing. If you tell them anything about our plans, we'll know, and I will immediately kill you on the spot. Am I understood? And Inko says, yes, that's understood. So Inko walks right out of there, and Hera told her where they were located, and she does end up walking back over there, eventually. It takes her a long time to get back over there because, for one, she has no money, she has no cell phone, nothing, absolute nothing. But when she eventually does get over there, she knocks on the door, and when Poseidon answers the door and he looks at her, he's in tears, on his knees, like crying, and he's asking if this is actually true, if this is actually happening. And Inko says, yes, it's true. It's actually happening. And, Poseidon hugs her immensely. And she asks if Izuku's home, and he says, no, not exactly. He's actually at school right now. And Toga comes out of Deku's room in like one of Deku's shirts, but not a whole lot of anything else. And Inko sees her and she's like, so this must be Deku's girlfriend. Am I correct? And Poseidon says, actually, there's something you may want to sit down for. And Inko says, what? And as soon as Poseidon sits her down, he sits down next to her and, he calls for Toga. Toga comes over there and, he says, this is Izuku's mother, Inko. You may as well tell her about the latest development that we found out last night. And she says, oh, you're gonna be a grandmother. And Inko's just like, what? I'm going to be a grandmother? Toga says that she's pregnant with Deku's kid. And Inko faints right there. She just faints. Like, it's already overloading her. She has absolute no idea what in the hell is actually going to be happening. Deku, Bakugo, Ida, and Asui at school, however, are being just drilled by Nezu. Nezu is lecturing them out the ass. And he's just like, what were you guys thinking? We are under so much bad press right now. The school is literally on the verge of being closed down with nothing. And you guys thought it would be a great idea to jump right on in to the middle of a villainous attack and try to, what, help? How did you guys think you were possibly able to help? And Deku just looks at him and says, did you not see the part where I literally shoved my fist straight through that bitch's chest, tearing out her heart? And now she's like, yeah, I saw you commit murder on live TV. How you're not in jail is just beyond me at this current point in time. And Deku's like, look, I'm not in jail because it was self-defense, okay? And, we were given strictly permission from Poseidon himself, and that's where Nezu cuts him off. He's like, look, Poseidon is not recognized by this school as a hero agency. Poseidon is not recognized or authorized to give you permission to engage in villain attacks whatsoever. I don't care if the government thinks that's cool or whatever. It's not by UA standards. However this may be, you guys are going to have to be expelled. There is no way around this. If we do not expel you, that is going to set a bad example for the rest of the students to, go by. We have no choice but to cut y'all out. And Asui and Ida, it pains me the most to do this to you two. You two had so much potential. Why do you throw it all away now? I will never know. But the consequences of your actions have to match Izuku's and Katsuki's. There can be no leniency showed whatsoever. So, they're all expelled. And Deku's just like, that's fine by me. Not like I give a fuck. And he walks off because he already knows, like, he's pretty much set to become something even greater. So, he's pretty much assured he's got himself a home to live at. And if, worse things comes to it, he can always have Poseidon back them up. But little does he know, things are about to get a lot more complicated for him. After he gets all his stuff, cleans out his lockers and everything, he's walking with Bakugo, and they run into Todoroki. And Todoroki looks at them and he's like, look at you. The strongest two, reduced to being expelled because what? You couldn't contain your lust for fighting? Newsflash, you got our symbol of peace killed. The world's changing because you think the world should have revolved around you. Your overinflated egos is what's caused this. Bakugo's pissed. He's no fuse is left anymore. After being bitched at by Nezu, lectured, had his friend ridiculed, had his mentor be ridiculed, he's pissed to no extent, being blamed for causing All Might's death now. That's it. That's over the top. He's crossed the fucking line. Bakugo grabs Todoroki by the cuff of his shirt and he lifts him up in the air. And Todoroki's surprised by this and he's like, the fuck are you doing? And, Deku tells him, you need a reality check, Shoto. There is no reason for you to be spouting that shit off. You're the most self-absorbed person here. So I don't want to hear you lecturing us whatsoever. Besides, you should be happy. Your daddy finally reached #1 on the hero charts. That's what your whole family's been wanting anyway. I don't see why you should have any type of fucking fleeting hatred left whatsoever. We're expelled. That's what you wanted the most anyway. So why don't you shut your fucking mouth? And Bakugo looks him straight in the eyes and he says, don't you ever fucking blame us for All Might's death. How do you think it felt when we had our hands full and couldn't help him whatsoever? So I don't give a fuck what you think. You need to shut your fucking mouth or I'll shut it for you. Here and now. And, Nezu's just like, what in the hell is going on here? Do I need to get security to escort the two of you out? And Deku's like, no. We're just telling somebody to shut their fucking mouth over shit he doesn't understand. And, Todoroki's just like, I don't know what that girl sees in you, but she clearly made the wrong choice when it came to her man. And that pisses Deku off. And he's like, you're not going to talk about Toga. I don't give a fuck where we're at. I'll level this entire building if you keep talking. And Nezu sees that as a threat, and he immediately calls the cops. And the police get there quick because they were already stationed outside the gates because they knew that shit. And, all Nezu had to say is, move in, they're in there. And Deku says, I'm warning you all. Back off. Now. Or this is going to get ugly. Asui and Ida come running in there. And, Ida, he puts it into high gear. He's using Hermes speed. He zips right on in there. He grabs Deku's shoulder. He's like, not here. Not now. I know you're pissed. And Deku's like, you don't even know what the fuck that half and half bastard just said. And, you know, Shoto, he's just like, what is with you guys? What is your, short fucking fuse here? And, Deku's like, you're not going to talk bad about the mother of my child. You're not even about to even say her fucking name. I don't even want her in your head. And, Nezu hears that and he's just like, oh shit. Yeah, kid, you really fucked up now. Because Deku's eyes, they're like blitzing with lightning right now. The whole, sky is rumbling with thunder. The whole school is shaking from the wind. And, Bakugo's just like, hey, calm down. We don't need you leveling this entire place and showing people that you're kind of like a villain here. And think about what would Toga want. And Deku's like, do I need to tell you not to say her fucking name either? And, Bakugo's just like, man, get a hold of yourself. Think about the situation. Is he really worth forcing our hand here? And Deku's just like, fine. But he gets off lucky right now. And Ida looks straight at, Todoroki, and he's like, you really just made the worst enemy today. You have no idea how strong this guy really is. And, Ida walks off. Bakugo, he kind of stays behind, and Nezu's like, Katsuki, what are you still doing here? And Bakugo's eyes are burning with hatred. The fire in his eyes. And he, looks straight at Todoroki and he's like, you made him threaten me. You turned my own brother against me for a single moment. You brought out so much anger in him, he was willing to commit an atrocity here. You will never see anything again. And he shines the light of the sun straight into Todoroki's eyes, blinding him. And then he turns around and leaves. And Todoroki, he's on the ground just screaming out in pain that he's been blinded. He can't see anymore. He can't see a thing. And they're trying to, get everybody, to over there, get him to the hospital, get him to Recovery Girl. And they don't know what Bakugo just did because none of the rest of them could see it. And Todoroki can't describe what just happened because he's dealing with the pain of his eyes literally being burned into blindness. And, once they get him to the Recovery Girl, even she's unable to fix it because Bakugo controls who cures blindness and who, stays blind. And he's making sure Todoroki stays blind. He wasn't going to kill him, but he made damn well sure Todoroki regrets his actions and his words. Because Bakugo's heart literally broke the moment Deku literally just snapped at him. Seeing him as a threat and, looking into Deku's eyes, seeing that burning hatred, the anger, the wrath that would, befall him if he said anything that would have overstepped again. Like, he saw Deku was really ready to just create a new tunnel to the middle of the earth right then and there. He wouldn't have even give a fuck about who died or how many died. He just wanted Todoroki gone. And Bakugo's really just pissed off that Todoroki pushed Deku that fucking far. Like, Deku's actually pretty much always been kind of chill and didn't let shit really get under his skin, but this whole becoming a father thing has really got him on edge, along with hearing that his father's brought back to life and is being used as a slave for the other side. That's really getting to him. It's under his skin. It's crawling at him. And he doesn't know how Deku's going to react or how Deku's going to turn out after this. So they get home, Deku sees his mom sitting there, and he's just like, Mom, you're alive. How? And Inko is just like, oh, hi there, Izuku. She's smiling at him in kind of a weird way, and her eyes are kind of just like staring dead through his soul. And, he sees Poseidon over there, literally just scared out of his mind. And Deku's just like, what's wrong, Mom? Like, I know you just came back from the dead, but I mean, this is a bit too much to take in. And she's like, how do you think I felt about learning that I'm going to be a grandmother that just got brought back from the dead? And Deku's like, oh shit. And she's like, but that's not even all of it. How do you think I feel knowing my son's a murderer? And Deku's just like, what? What do you mean? And she says, what you did to Apollo. What you did to him. How? How could you have done that to your own family? And Deku's like, what do you mean? How could I do that? He sold everyone out. He did that to every single person. And you're telling me to not have killed him? He's the reason that Aphrodite died. Athena died. Merida died because of him. He even was going to kill you. And you wanted me to sit there and do nothing? You didn't want me to kill him? How could you have forgiven that? And she says, because he wasn't the one who killed me. He was innocent. He actually didn't lead them to their deaths. He wasn't the reason Aphrodite died. He wasn't the reason Athena died. He wasn't the reason Merida died. It was Nyx. All of it. And Deku's like, are you going to tell me I shouldn't have killed Nyx either? Like, what else shouldn't I have done? And Inko, she's there and she pauses for a minute and she's like, no, I have to agree, killing Nyx was the right move. But the consequences of that move are still to be discovered yet. And I'm afraid you might not have long to find out what those actions may have caused you. And, Deku's just like, what do you mean? You know something, don't you? And Inko says, I cannot say. And Deku's like, what, are you working with them now? Is my own mother conspiring against me? And that's when she walks up and she slaps the fuck out of Deku. She literally slaps Deku so hard, it breaks her hand. And Poseidon goes ballistic at that sight. He rushes over there, takes his metal arm, swings it as far back as possible, and fucking slams it as hard as he fucking can into Deku's face. He sends Deku soaring into the air. Deku gets knocked back like 10 fucking blocks. And he's in the air and he's just like, ah. He puts his hand to his face and, he notices, I'm bleeding? I'm actually bleeding. Because this is like the first time in a long time that he's actually bled. So it's kind of shocking to him. And he's pissed off at this point. And he's getting ready to fight Poseidon. And, he charges up a huge fucking lightning blast. And Bakugo literally just sends his ass like straight all the way up to Deku, rocketing at him at a high speed. And he's like, stop it. This is your family. I don't know what's in your head, but you've been off all this time. What's wrong? What has got you so fucked up in the head that you'd be willing to risk killing your own mother again, fighting your last living family member? Hell, you could potentially kill your own future child down there. If you go through with this, you will not be our ally anymore, but you will be our enemy. I won't let that happen. If you're so pissed off that you need something to hit, then I'm right here. But you're not going to take another step forward until you've calmed down and regained your senses. And, Deku looks at him and he's like, you really think you could get in my way, Bakugo? Are you so sure that you could beat me? And Bakugo says, no. I'm absolutely fucking terrified. But I'm not letting you become a murderer of your own family. And I'm definitely not letting you kill your own child. You're going to calm down, or one of us will die here. And that's where I'm going to be leaving it off for now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, I would appreciate it if you guys left me a like, comment down below, subscribe if you're new, click that notification bell to get notified every time I upload a video, and click that link down in the description, join that Discord. And as always, I'm the Crown Clown. I will see all you lovely people again next time.